So, are we about to get a bunch of remakes, and why is this the case? So guys, John Claymore here, and as you guys know, this is primarily not a pop culture channel, but I will throw pop culture out there from time to time. As a matter of fact, I recently updated my playlist, and I've put everything inside said playlist. Of course, certain bits of information will go into a pop culture category for videos like this right here. So expect this matter to be in that playlist. But we got to talk about Disney, because we got this report coming in that Disney's investors are not exactly happy with what's going on there. And there's a bit of a revolt going on. However, this particular situation has led me to look into this situation a little bit further. Now, there are a lot of things going on. For example, woke Snow White has been pushed out to 2025, and they've decided to replace the magical creatures with CGI dwarves. There's also new information coming out that they plan on remaking all, and I mean all of the original Star Wars films. I wonder how that's going to work out. There's also this new situation where the Marvels is bombing and expected to bomb at the box office, because as we already know, 2023 has not exactly been a good year for this company. And of course, South Park is really and truly lighting them the hell up with the Panderverse. Absolutely hilarious, especially the stuff that they've been doing on Kathleen Kennedy. I would show that here, but Paramount has this thing about copyright that's really bad, so I can't really show it to you for you guys to see the full effect, because sometimes putting a header over something may not work out the way you might actually think it would work. But still, at the same time, a lot of things going on. And then I came across this little bit right here from Dave Cullen. This one right here to me is the most interesting of them all. Now, as always, guys, there are four separate clips that came from three different content creators who do dabble a little bit more into pop culture than I do. Anytime I play a clip from any one of these other YouTube content creators, I try to link their channel in the description box, or at least the video itself, so that way you guys can go check them out. It's one of the ways I give credit to the content creators, and seeing how it is that I'm not really and truly a pop culture channel, more of a general knowledge and situational awareness channel as far as what's going on in today's society, I feel the need to play you this. A little over a minute. Make sure you guys listen all the way through, because this one to me I think is very interesting.
To a dignified conclusion by bringing back the core 6 Avengers for one final film, using various creative sci-fi solutions to do so, and then retire the franchise entirely following one last Iron Man film featuring Tony Stark. Well, if rumours are to be believed, that idea may not sound quite so crazy. This article is from Screen Rant. Avengers 6 will soft reboot the MCU and bring back retired characters. Kevin Feige, quote, backs rumours. A major new bombshell suggests that Marvel plans to soft reboot the MCU in 2027 with the 6th Avengers movie, and teasing the return of lost heroes. And there's been quite a few of the originals who've dropped out. Obviously Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Natasha Romanoff being the 3 biggest characters. And between resurrections and multiverse hijinks, there's any number of ways to bring them back if needed. Taking a leaf out of the what-if playbook, I suppose. Now, as I mentioned before, the only way to really bring back some lost credibility to the MCU after Disney decided to keep the franchise going after Endgame, which was a mistake in my view, is to bring the franchise back to its roots and back to what made this series work in the first place. Now, the article says the MCU could reboot after Avengers Secret Wars in just 4 years, according to a new quote from Marvel Supremo Kevin Feige. The upcoming Avengers 6 will close out the currently announced slate of upcoming Marvel movies on May 7th, 2027, but Feige has also said in a recent interview with Variety that the MCU has barely scratched the surface of the story potential for Marvel.
We're going to be talking a little bit more in a second about creativity being non-existent. Basically, people running out of ideas. So, but you caught that, right? Dave Cullen. Very good. I really and truly miss Computing Forever. I miss that channel. I used to watch a lot of his content. This guy was on to a lot of very good stuff. Still listen to Dave from time to time. Here's the deal. Marvel, if they do this, especially after Avengers Endgame, it would probably be what I would call for a short space. You would get one movie. It would be an Avengers movie. They'd probably pull the time jump thing. They probably would go back in time and resurrect Tony, get Robert Downey Jr. to play for a little bit. They would probably go back in time, get Chris Evans to have him play Captain America one more time. Or they may even try to CGI some of it. Either way, it's not going to work. You'll get a lot of money for one film. It will be almost like the last Spider-Man movie they did. It would basically be a fan service film. Is pretty much what it would probably be. It would give them a nice little bit of cash to get them through. But the current rate that we're going with investors saying, look, we don't want to invest in this product. We're definitely worried about, especially given the fact that you have Disney's 100-year anniversary coming up. A lot of people are a little bit uneasy about that company. And we'll talk more about the company here in a second because some more information has came out that, quite frankly, I think is stunning. It's just, to me, it's stunning how stupid you could be. Now, let me say this before we get to creativity. Over the years, Disney has basically bought 20th Century Fox, their products, their IPs, of course. They've bought Marvel, which I thought was a bad idea. Lucasfilm, when they bought Lucasfilm, I didn't think they could screw that up because I didn't think they would actually screw it up the way we thought they were going to do that. But, of course, if you ever saw the brand new Star Wars trilogy, of course, that includes The Last Jedi, which is the first one that pops in my mind because how bad it was. I actually went and saw the movie twice to make sure it was bad. First time I saw it, it just so happened to be that I was in line with somebody who had an extra ticket. Nobody saw it. I watched it, didn't know what to make of it. Went back later on that night, watched it again, absolutely hated it. Rise of Skywalker seemed like a good idea on the surface, but of course it ended up being an absolute disaster. And of course, The Force Awakens was just basically a remake of the original Episode 4, A New Hope. Fact of the matter is this right here. When you buy IPs like, say, Lucasfilm, or you buy Marvel, you are inheriting their fan bases is what you were doing. Now, granted, I understand comics is a little bit different. Like, for example, when the DCEU decided to go out of their way to make films, go out of their way to redo everything, and by the way, this is also a warning for these people, too. The only character I really truly cared about was Batman. I'm, for the most part, just a Batman fan when it comes to DC Comics. There's some things Superman does I like, but for the most part, I'm strictly a Batman fan. In Marvel, I've only got about maybe 2 or 3 characters I really and truly care about. Marvel to me is more along the lines of liking several different heroes just a little bit. Like, for example, I like Iron Man, but just a little bit. Not so much to be a Iron Man fan. Captain America's okay, but just a little bit. The only real Marvel characters I really and truly was actually a fan of were Spider-Man and the Punisher. Mostly due to the 1994 Spider-Man animated series I used to watch every day when I came home from school. Yes, I'm that old. And, of course, The Punisher, where it was actually the films, because when I was in the Marines, The Punisher was kind of a bit of a thing that we took a lot of inspiration from. The thing is this right here, when you get a hold of these IPs, you are inheriting their fan bases. You don't want to screw things up. Disney, of course, has absolutely screwed things up. And with this new iteration of the Marvels, which is basically Captain Marvel Part 2 in a lot of ways, they've already decided to go ahead and start cutting off reviews for the film. They know it's going to absolutely suck. Now, I could make a video strictly on Brie Larson and what her overall function was, but I'm going to be very, very clear and very concise on this right here. I cannot in any way, shape, or form do a bunch of videos on this said person. I'm not Jeremy at the Quartering. Towards the end of Marvel Phase 3, you had Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I'm one of the few people out there who actually liked it. You had Thor Ragnarok, which I thought was funny, but of course Thor Love and Thunder was basically taking that film, Thor Ragnarok, and just making it basically the same film without there not being any filter on it. And of course, as a result of it, it was pulled off rather poorly. Then you get to Avengers, you get to Infinity War, you get to Endgame, and for the most part, I think it should have ended right there. It probably should have taken a break. They probably shouldn't have made any more movies, but of course, they did in fact do that. 2020, of course, would end up screwing them up much, much more. Several scandals, all that type of stuff there. We'll talk more about that in the long-form essay on how Marvel actually died and whether it can be saved or not next year. So they bring in Brie Larson, they have Captain Marvel, and they sign her up to do a bunch of films. And of course, right around the time the first film was released, people were already skeptical of the film and skeptical of her because she went out of her way to do these interviews where she came off as extremely annoying and a real pain in the butt. Nobody liked her, so what did they do? After Endgame, actually in Endgame, they shrunk her role altogether. She was really only in the film altogether, maybe a grand total of like 6 minutes total. They basically shrunk her. Then they bring her back for several cameo appearances, only to find out that she's still not liked. You see, they wanted her to basically take over. And as a result of this, because they play politics, feminism, wokeism, all that type of crap, you have nobody to bank the success of your company on, which makes me wonder that after the Marvels completely, totally flops, what are they going to do next? Well, then we get to this next content creator, who, by the way, called this a long time ago. Yes, I'm going to go with Razer Fist on this one.
Unfortunately, I doubt I'll be subjected to such. You see, where Hollywood's, and allow me to break out the Olympic-sized air quotes here, creativity is concerned, filmic fads tend to boast a lifespan no shorter than 10 years and no longer than 20. For example, film noir began around 1940. By 1963, it was deader than our meth-addicted Cuban Missile Crisis causing Vietnam warmonger-in-chief. Westerns like The Rifleman and Rawhide reigned throughout the 60s and 70s, but motherfucking evaporated by the 80s. Sci-fi, 80s fantasy, disaster flicks, you name it, like a Sony camcorder from Bizarro World, it invariably lasted between 10 and 20 years, and it must be said, they were rarely relevant for more than a mere decade. And outliers like Superman 78 or Batman 89 aside, while the ascent of superhero cinema began as early as the 2000s with the likes of X-Men, Blade, and Spider-Man, it wasn't until Iron Man's almost one-to-one interpretation of the sequential story it was based on that the current conglomeration of more sincere comic cash grabs began in earnest. And don't look up, motherfuckers! But it's been
one of those mini videos that Razer Fist did. Razer spoke largely about the fact that remakes were coming. And we'll get to that here in a second, because I got another bit of information from another content creator named Mike Zero, but I'll also try to link Doomcock Overlord DVD in his description box. So he keeps up with this a lot more than I do, and he's very good. He's also called a lot of things accurately. Here's the thing. After a while, when you start running out of ideas, the creativity is gone, you really don't have anything else except maybe possibly remakes and reboots. How would I do things differently? The problem with this is that you have a bunch of children writing the films themselves, and as a result of this, you're probably going to get a great big giant shortfall, which means that you're probably going to have to, you're probably going to lose a lot of cash. People get bored very easily, even kids who should be the actual market that you're going for. Eventually, at some point in time, they do, in fact, understand that as you get older, things just don't appear to be the same. You don't feel as excited anymore. And after a while, the audience will let you know by not showing up to watch your film. Now, I can already hear somebody saying, well, you've got digital. Okay, well, you're about to lose the movie theaters. Digital seems great on the surface, but after a while, you're probably going to see salaries begin to go down. People are going to make less money, especially given the fact, even with the rampant inflation and the fact that the actor strike, a big part of it hinged on the fact that CGI was going to be used a lot heavier. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys can see where I'm going. Hollywood as a whole is a dying vessel, and Disney's already dead, and everything that's just coming off of Disney right now is nothing more than good old-fashioned fumes. That is all the hell this is. Just extremely bad ideas coming from what's essentially a corpse. And as a result of this, as you guys, is what Razer had said, you typically tend to go through these cycles where creativity eventually runs out. So you got to wonder what happens next. The Mike Zero. Now, guys, I'm going to play the first half, give some additional commentary, come back, play the second half, additional commentary, close the video out on what I think is actually going to happen, and the warning that should be out there for just about anybody, everybody who's thinking about venturing into comic book films. Let's go ahead and roll this.
Ever have you, and it only gets worse. Let's get into all of this, shall we? Now, with Bob Iger currently going into full damage control for their upcoming Disney releases, one major development has to do with what was recently approved by Iger. Now, this crucial update has to do with their restructuring of the company to double down on their DEI agenda with all upcoming Disney live-action remakes. As it turns out, Disney is getting ready to drop a big announcement surrounding the live-action remake of Sword in the Stone that is going to support the concept of race-swapping some characters. Now, the current plan right now is to race-swap some of the main characters in that film, such as Madame Mim. The same concept will be applied to the upcoming Hercules live-action remake, where characters like Meg and Hades are already planned to come from different backgrounds, while they are fully planning to alter the story and background of Hercules by dropping the demigod storyline as a way to divert from source material to give fans a reimagining of that film. Now, guys, we touched on this months ago, that they are going to completely alter the story of Hercules, much like how they are altering the storyline of Snow White. That is now delayed, by the way. It is official until March of 2025. Now, there's a lot of things going into this that just goes to show you that Bob Iger and the board are relentless, and they do not care about ramifications, at least seemingly so, right? Now, at the same exact time, we also are very well aware about what they are currently doing with all of their Disney Plus material. They're going to be raising
remakes. That's a lot of remakes they plan to. So you're basically going to wokeify the sword in the stone. Man, what else are these people looking to wokeify? I mean, you've already destroyed Snow White, which is actually like the OG of Disney films. You can go ahead and call it Snow Brown, or now you can call it fake Snow Brown, whatever, because now they've decided to replace, which of course is rather piss poor of them that they chose to replace that. They went with magical creatures, and then they decided to go with CGI little people, and now of course real little people are out of a job. You guys see where I'm going with this? They could just CGI just about anything and everything. Which makes me also wonder if films as a whole are not going to be animated here. I'm pretty sure they all will be. But still, the thing is this right here. When you start remaking everything and you start updating it to brand new audiences, after a while, the people who actually need to carry the kids to go see the film, they eventually don't show up. It was an interview that was done a while back with Walt Disney. I think it was back in late 1960s. And he was asked a question about He was asked a question about animation. And some people were a little bit upset about the fact that they didn't think that adults would watch animated films. But here's the thing. Some animated films are, in fact, pretty good. I remember getting a lot of hell about this when I was a child, when I was a kid. Every now and again, I'll still watch good old-fashioned cartoons. I mean, hell, I even watched the friggin' Three Stooges. Come on now. Here's the thing. Parents have got to carry the kids to the movie theaters. But what happens if the streaming services start streaming these films and the parents don't watch? They don't let their kids watch it because of what Disney's turned into. I mean, most children don't have a bank account below the age of 18. I'm just saying, I mean, this business model is probably not going to work out, which we're going to talk about next.
And they think that's a good business move? I think not at all. That's only going to actually resolve with people leaving the platform and wanting nothing to do with it at all. So, moving onwards here. To make matters even worse, Alice in Wonderland 2010 is also getting rebooted with a complete diverse cast that was pushed by Bob Iger and the Disney Board of Directors. The announcement for Alice in Wonderland's reboot is planned to drop the first earnings call for 2024 that will also be a complete reimagining of the past film with Johnny Depp. This is where it gets really insane. This is said to be a big push by Disney to vanquish any memory of Johnny Depp's work with that film in order to create a new iteration of characters like Alice and the Mad Hatter, for example. Another reason why they are embracing a full-on Pirates of the Caribbean reboot. What's embarrassing for Disney, however, is that many of the live-action remakes will involve dialing back on roughly 25% of their budget compared to films like Snow White and the Little Mermaid to reduce spending on CGI and stardom power.
Changing things up. If you just keep changing things around and try to re-update it, after a while, it's just going to get to the point to where it just looks like a great big giant joke and nobody's going to watch it. Or if they do watch it, eventually they're just not going to take it serious. Which leads me to this final conclusion. And this right here is the conclusion that I have. If Warner, DC, Detective Comics, ever thinks that maybe they can save the DCEU, that maybe they could actually do that and pull that off, let me tell you now what needs to happen. Let me tell you right now what you need to know. When they made the Batman with Robert Pattinson, I thought the movie was actually, most people thought the movie was pretty good, at least to the last 30 minutes. What was really refreshing was the fact that they chose to not go with the Joker until the very end of the movie when they revealed that the Joker was there. Nobody has a rogues gallery like Batman. Stop using the freaking Joker in every single film. Everything was fine. And then all of a sudden they chose to hit us with that. You have got a built-in bailout to save your company. You've got a built-in bailout to save your companies as a whole. What you need to do is you need to lean into original stories. You need to lean into originality. Marvel, for example, they wanted to go to the Secret Wars, but you could go to the Spider-Man animated series and get all your ideas right there. If you ever watched the 1994 Spider-Man cartoon, then you would know that Spider-Man had a lot of different episode breaks. For example, you had season 1, then you had the 2-parter with Hobgoblin, then you had the 3-parter with Venom, and then, of course, eventually you had the mutagenic nightmare. There was the neogenic nightmare. There was that little thing with Silvermane, the Tablet of Time, and you also had to go on top of this. You also had... what else was it? Partners in Danger. You had Insidious 6. You had a lot of ideas there. And a lot of those ideas, by the way, also involved other characters. You see, there are actual stories out there that you could use. There's actual creativity there for you to actually borrow from. And by the way, the thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe or Marvel Comics as a whole is that there are a lot of crossover comics out there. For example, The Punisher, his first appearance was in a Spider-Man comic. Oh, wait, that's right. Daredevil did stuff with Spider-Man. Oh, that's right. Iron Man also did things. All you got to do is go to that there or go to the 1992 X-Men cartoon and draw from there. It is right there. But then again, though, seeing how it is that we're actually molting and burning statues of Robert E. Lee, I guess it would be too much to ask for you to simply go in the past and get your ideas. The very few stories that I just mentioned are way more interesting than any damn thing Marvel could do in the future because these people aren't very bright. And this is a warning to DC. You've got, without a doubt, the greatest superhero. You got the greatest hero ever in comics in Batman. You have any idea what that man's rogues gallery is like? Yes, the Joker's the chief villain, but my God, you've got so many stories to draw from. And by the way, you ain't got to put them all in the animated universe, which, by the way, those films are good. Of course, they're not exactly accurate to the comic. I thought Hush was pretty egregious. And I thought The Killing Joke was definitely a lot more egregious. But think about it. You've got The Dark Knight Returns. You've got, what else? You've got No Man's Land. You've got Nightfall. You've got all kinds of stories. Prodigal, using Dick Grayson as Batman, which, by the way, did, of course, happen. You've got Year 3. You've got an amalgamation of stories. Year 1, Killing Joke. You could redo that. The Man Who Laughs. Batman Who Laughs, Venom. You've got all kinds of stories that you could use, that you could actually draw from. The biggest reason why you've got this issue right now is because the companies are being ran by children who don't exactly respect the source material or respect the past. And someone like Bob Iger just simply says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go along with it. I don't want it. Next thing you know, your company's losing a lot of money and you have a lot of alienated fans. So I also make this video also as a bit of a warning to Warner Brothers, a company that, by the way, had to shut down a lot of woke projects because of the fear that was to come. Utilize Max, utilize the stuff to get actual, honest-to-God original stories out there. I was all about the possibility of a live-action Batman episodic show. Why not go do that there? You got the money. You can do it on a smaller scale. And please, Disney, if you want to save your company, stop race swapping everything. DC, make sure you actually learn from what Marvel and what everybody else is doing. With that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and halt this video now. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I'm going to get you guys thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.